Hello and welcome. My name is Beate Gillette. I'm the growth architect and founder of the Women's Code. Welcome to my little webinar on how to create an unapologetic value proposition. It is a free training that I have created, and the unapologetic value proposition leads you to being able to pitch anything to anyone anytime. The first question I have for you is a question that I have heard from many people I've worked with, where they say, why would anybody even listen to me? And does my voice matter? Now, you could be an employee, you could be a valuable team member, you could be a team leader, you could run your own business, or maybe you are here because you are for the very first time really looking into being a leader, or you have found out that it is just not okay to you anymore, that your voice isn't getting the feedback or you're not heard as much as you should be. So the first thing I would like you to do is please download the guide that goes with it. So I've created a handout called the Create Your Unapologetic Value Proposition, because I will be taking you through the 4 different elements. So go ahead and download that now. So your takeaways for today are going to be, you're going to learn why your unique, your unapologetic value proposition, some people call it the unique value proposition, some people call it the professional value proposition, some people call it the personal value proposition, and I call it the unapologetic value proposition. So you learn how to create one. I'm going to give you the 4 elements of it, and we are going to address some of these issues that go around what are the steps that you can take to move forward with it, and I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I want to start telling you about the writer's room. The writer's room is a room that is in a session whenever there's a television show or a miniseries. So for those of you who have a television, who watch a show, there usually is a group of writers. And these writers, while they're all individually really great writers, they could all do their own thing. But when you think about it, a show has different characters, and each character goes through a development individually. These characters have relationships. These relationships go through a development. Then there are groups that have relationships and interactions. There's a storyline per episode, and there's a storyline for the entire season. And that has to tie in and be consistent with the overall year after year season of this particular show. And sometimes when there's a new show, it kind of feels a little bumpy in the beginning. That's because the writers haven't really figured out their cadence. They're not connecting quite yet, and the characters haven't had their personal development. Now, what's critical to understand in a writer's room is that, very much like real life, it is, would you think that a 25-year-old white male could talk about what it feels like to be a woman over 50 having a hot flash? So you laugh, but that is the point, is you cannot make assumptions on just because somebody's a writer, or because somebody has a skill set, that they know and what it feels like to have a particular type of experience. So it behooves a writer's room if they bring in writers that are diverse, so that these connections to the stories are real and true. Very famously, there was this one episode in This Is Us, which was written up heavily about, where one of the characters had a panic attack, and afterward people responded to this, and they said that felt like the real thing, and they recognized the experience for those who were watching it, that were having anxiety and panic attacks. And that is what we're striving to achieve, not just obviously in television rooms, but we try to achieve that in the workplace, and with the work that we do, and with how we do works and how we build teams, that we have people in places, that you are at a place where you can authentically share your experience, and people are recognizing you for your skill set. So let's talk about your skill set and your super skill. So super skill is something that you are so good at that it's a no-brainer for you to even think about. Like you go, man, I didn't even know. I didn't even know other people have a problem with that. But because it is so easy for you, most of you have a really hard time understanding what that is. But as an outsider, for me, if I see it, I can tell you in a nanosecond where I think that super skill is hiding, because it usually is such an easy thing for you that you almost feel bad of making that a super skill, that you feel it needs to be something that's more difficult. So let's say you're, in my world, so my super skill is to take complex processes and break them down into super simple steps. So no matter what it is, as it comes to business, I listen to it. It's immediately, I get the images in my head and I can't help myself, but it's just all out there. So when I speak to my clients, within no time, I kind of get an idea what the business model is. I get an idea what their personality traits are. I kind of get very quickly a grasp on what they're really, really good at, what should be at the center of their messaging, and then we move forward with that. So you are comprised out of all these different experiences, and I have the slide here for you to take a look at, where all of these elements really go into forming who you are and what makes you special. The reason you need to do that is because right now, and this is from a series of interviews I have done with CEOs, CHROs, chief culture officers, chief people officers of really big companies. And I asked them what the future of leadership looks like. And I asked them what they want their talent to do and what they need their employees to do right now. And the answers are absolutely astonishing, or maybe they're not astonishing, because what they want you to do, they want you to show up. They want you to take charge now, because with COVID-19, with civil unrest, and them being so busy in these structural and systematic changes that they try to make to have the system accommodate what is required now and what will work now, they don't have time for as much individual development as they may have had before, because there's an actual emergency. There's a massive disaster that is in America completely out of control, and that takes most of their thinking. So they're worried about safety. They're worried about getting you back to work safely. They don't know when that's going to happen. They try to keep you creative and engaged at home. They understand that those of you who are parents, who are doing now homeschooling, double, triple, quadruple duties, that's a really tall order. And there's so much going on that they now relying on you a lot more to step up and to carry some of this development on your own. And that is the opportunity, in my opinion, that you waited for this entire time. Because this question on why would anybody listen to me now gets answered very easily, because your viewpoint right now, especially if you're a minority, your viewpoint right now is absolutely critical. A lot of the things that you think are your weaknesses, as a matter of fact, are your greatest strength. So let's dive into element number one, and please take your hand out and let's move along here. It used to be in business that all I needed to do is make a strong business case for something, and then I had my strategy and I pulled my strategy through. That was it. Now today, what's changed is that the requirement of a leader are much larger and much more complex than they were before, because people have been in negative emotions, and there's lots of data around it, which I don't have time to share with you right now. But there's so much data around negativity and anxiety and angst and uncertainty that a leader right now needs to have empathy. The answer in the first element, the answer that I want you to write in there, the reason anybody wants to listen to you is because you're a subject matter expert in your area. in what you know. So if you're a woman, well, that makes you an expert in what it's like to be a woman. If you're a man, that makes you an expert in what it's like to be a man. If you're LGBTQ, you or non-conforming, that makes you an expert in that category, because not everybody is like that. So instead of hiding or, just making sort of joining an affinity group and that calling it a day, I want you to make, some of these things really at the center of your unapologetic value proposition, because that is what makes you truly you. Leadership is happening, and leadership starts when you actually assume leadership. So let's go into element number 2 in setting goals and objectives. So a lot of times when we set out to do something, we start with a starting point right here, and then we have a lofty goal where we want to go to, and then we feel that from here to here it's like this straight line, and our career just progresses ever so often. We get a promotion, we move ahead, we get more clients, we make more money, and life is grand. The reality of it is, and a lot of you have noticed this, is that this isn't the case, because that's not how life works. I'm going to show you how life works. And life looks a lot more like this here, where you think it's a straight line, but it's this crazy zigzag line that goes all over the place. So now, what does that mean? It means that we are now going to look into how do you survive and how do you make it through such a crazy zigzag line. So I shared with you that I am, a long-term entrepreneur. I'm known as a growth architect. And I was a photo editor at Elle magazine in Germany. And then I immigrated to the United States because I realized that when you work in a magazine and you're in a powerful position, I was only 23 and I ran the photo department at Elle, is that you are not being loved for who you are. You're being loved for the position you have. And I wanted to be liked and recognized for my contributions, not the positions that I had. So I came to America and I made a lot of really bad choices. So I fell in love with a great man who had only 2 mistakes. He was a pathological liar and he was an alcoholic. But by the time I figured that out, I was married and pregnant, and I was in for a wild ride. So while I was pregnant, there were the riots in Los Angeles. And that was when Rodney King was beaten by the police officers and barely survived. And that, the city was on fire. It was a horrible time, major civil unrest, curfews, not unlike what we've just experienced again. And as I am, that was right after I was trying to get to my wedding, which is when we had these catastrophic rains, and the street washed out and was covered by a mudslide. So we didn't even know if we were going to get to our venue until the day before, when the streets finally opened. Now I have the rains, I have the floods, I have the mudslides, I have my riots. And as I am, going through the motion of, being employed, the big earthquake came, and I realized that if my life was over, and that's what it felt like in that moment, that I better be making some changes. So I decided I was going to get a divorce. And on top of that, I lost my job because it was a huge recession at the time. So I had to start to figure out how to be an entrepreneur. So over about a decade, I, went ahead and I fell back, went ahead and I fell back. And then I built my business to about $1 million business, which I thought was pretty good. And I had a bad employee who got too close with my key vendor. They had this idea how to build their own business just without me. I sued them. I'm involved in this like massive, long, expensive lawsuit. I go deep into debt. I don't think I'm going to make it. But then, summer comes around. I was a producer. I produced for Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and great European brands like Levi's and Wrangler, who came here to produce in Los Angeles. And that's why I put the slide up so you can see my beautiful city right behind me. And I am, I'm I'm thinking, yay, I'm going to make it. And then September 11th comes, and within a day, within 24 hours, I lose $500,000 in production volume, and I'm out. I mean, literally, I had no business on the books, so I had to figure out what I was going to do. So my lawsuit settles a couple months later, but once it's all said and done, I walk out with nothing, with zero. I paid my debt, I paid my attorney, and I literally had nothing in the bank. So I could have saved myself a year worth of fighting and just stuck to rebuilding my business. So I had to rebuild it anyway. And so I had this great idea to build up this stock photography syndication. And I built up the stock photography syndication and celebrity homes. But I had no money, remember? So I got into debt again. And eventually I was $135,000 in debt. And that was game over. I had to borrow money to pay interest on borrowed money. But I went to Europe to drum up some business, and I wanted to meet with my father. My father has a stroke, but my father didn't have a stroke. My father had pancreatic cancer, and he passed away. He passed away only 6 weeks later in my arm. So I'm flying back and forth from America to Germany on money I don't have, paying for a funeral on money I don't have. And talk about defining moments. It was the moment where I sank on my knees and I raised my fist and I yelled at God and I said, if you have a plan, this would be an excellent time to fill me in. And I bet a lot of you are experiencing something very similar at this moment, with the lack of work, with the uncertainty, with the anger, the frustration, the not knowing what's going to happen. That was that point. While I'm at the funeral, my phone rings. I get a call from my office in Los Angeles, and we're being told that we've been served a notice, so I'm losing the house, and I'm going to have to figure out how to move on money I don't have. What you don't know is, in the meantime, I had written a business plan and a letter to the President of the United States, then George W. Bush. And I got a letter from the White House after I came back to America, and it said, the president's delighted to hear from you. I'm pretty sure the president never even ever heard my name. However, this letter was sent to the Small Business Administration, put me in touch with the deputy chief director, and they were able to help me find a bank who restructured my debt, freed up my line of credit. 3 months later, I'm break even. 18 months later, I am the world leader in celebrity home stories, licensing in 79 countries in the world. And a Bill Gates company comes knocking on my door, says, can you tell us how you do it? I said, what every smart woman would do. I said, absolutely not. And I said, if you want to know what I do, you need to pay for it. And they said, okay. And they gave me a lot of money, too much money to turn down. So I sold my business to no other than Bill Gates. And then I became the senior director of global entertainment for this company, saw how difficult it was for women in organizations, saw what different rules there are between men and women, founded the Women's Code to help specifically women to have a code amongst each other and to understand what the men's code is and how it works, and then to help men understand what the women's code's like, and so that we can bring both together and achieve true equity in the workplace and help people to not all be the same, but to all be different, and like a puzzle piece where every puzzle piece is different in a puzzle, and yet it forms together one beautiful picture. There's an example I just learned from the chief operational officer at Kaiser Permanente, who I spoke with today. And I just love this example because all these individual pieces are forming one puzzle. And so that's my story. And I am here to tell you that when you are going through these disasters, and now I added the pandemic to it, and another set of riots and protests and civil unrest, there is always an inevitable recovery, and there is a way out, and there's always opportunity. But there are a few things that you need to do along the way to get there. So the lessons I have learned in my career and in surviving and thriving in these and finding the opportunity in a disaster and then coming out on the other side is that you really have to be clear about, when you're a leader, that the answer to how do you lead is it depends. It really depends on the situation. And sometimes you need to flip the model upside down because what used to work just doesn't work. And here's the letter from the President of the United States. And this is how I started. I put this slide in there because it's really easy sometimes when I speak or when I train or teach for you to look at me and say, oh, yeah, she doesn't have these problems. She can't relate. Well, my first car was a $500 car, and I did, in fact, sleep on the floor on a futon. So let's move on to element number 3. And let's talk about why do you need to be able to pitch anything to anyone, anytime. So the most important question that is overlooked so many times is and I told you, flip the model just a minute ago. And what I mean by that is that we are looking at the world from our perspective. So I have my opinions, I, have my belief systems. And when I go out, I want to hang out with people who believe in what I believe in. We have common interests, and that's the way it goes. If I do a good job, I want you to tell me that I'm doing a good job. I want to get my promotion. I want clients to just see that I'm doing a good job and say, well, who do you recommend? You recommend Beate. I'm going to hire her, and life is hunky-dory. But as you suspected, that just isn't so. The way it really works is that today, one of your most important skill sets is that you have to be able to talk about yourself, but you have to flip it in such a way that it's not about you, it's about what you bring to them. So I'm going to say that one more time because it's really, really critical that you write this down. It is not about what you say, it's what you say that solves a problem that they have. They need to know what's in it for them. So if you go on a team, if they hire you, if they give you the job, if they give you their money, you need to be able to clearly articulate what is it that they're getting by doing that. That is probably in advancement the biggest mistake I see, that people just talking about I, but they never say, well, when you give this to me, then I will do this for you, and then list all that kind of good stuff. So what if I could give you actually the formula to design this in such a way that you have that formula every single time you go into a meeting, every single time you go into a job interview, every single time you talk to a potential client, that you have that formula where you know exactly what you need to say and how to say it, in which order this formula is in. So what happens when you don't have a formula like this? And you get a question that you're not prepared for, like the question, why would I hire you, or why would I give you the opportunity, or what makes you so special? And you start stammering around, you sound completely fake, or you sound like an egoistic maniac, and you just sound not believable. You sound fake. So when somebody says, what makes you so good at it? Then you really need to believe that needs to come from your inside. Now, it's for some people, it's really great to sell themselves. But for most of us, it's really not that easy. It's a skill you have to learn. It's a skill that you practice over and over and over again. And even when you practice it over and over again, then something shifts and you have to adjust. I mean, now specifically in going through what we're going through right now, there are massive changes in the value proposition, because what mattered like 6 months ago doesn't matter right now at all. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go to this website that I'm going to bring up in just a second, called rocketlaunch.training, because I'm going to tell you, for those of you who already know that you need help doing this, then I'm going to take you through what I'm offering you. Is going to be very quick, and then I'm going to continue with giving you the formula. Let me take you through this. So this page is at rocketlaunch.training. So what I've created a program that takes you through step by step how to design an unapologetic value proposition, where we really dive into the formula. I'm going to give you the formula right now. So for those of you who just want to know what to do and then you're off running, that's fine. But most of you are going to be like most of my clients, that you are looking at this and you say, I really, for crying out loud, cannot figure out what I'm really good at. I need some help with that. So for those of you who really need a little bit more extra help, this is for you. So how it works is this. I believe that things have really changed right now. And again, this is, don't take it just from me, but these are interviews I've done where I ask lots of very high powered people that are hiring people and that are making decisions of which suppliers that are bringing on, what matters to them right now. And they have said all the same thing. You got to be crystal clear what it is that you're bringing to the table. And without an exception, I have heard this from everybody. They also talked about, reducing the fear of not showing up confused, but of really drilling it down to making sure that the way you show up is that they can very quickly talk to you and get a feeling for what you are, who you are, what you're bringing to the table, articulate that so they can make the decision. Because there's one thing that they do not have, it is time. So in this program, the Rocket Launch Your Career, there's 3 reasons I want you to do that. Number 1, networking opportunities have all but vanished. And so the water cooler opportunity, the chance lunch with the boss, all these chance interactions are pretty much gone. You're Zooming, you're in GoToMeeting, you're in WebEx, you are primarily, in a setting where all the human interaction, the close human interaction has been taken out. So how are you going to stand out now? How are you going to utilize that to not just be a wheel in the machine, but to actually stand out? That's why you need this. What is included in this course is I've identified, 4 tracks, which I'll take you through now, that you need in order to figure out what is it that you're really good at, and how do you talk about it, and then how do you pitch it every single time. The elements of the course, and I know the first thing you're going to ask, like, how much is it? I created this course at the beginning of the year, and I put it out there for $497. After I saw what happened with COVID, I literally said, I'm going to make this available for everybody. So it's available for $97. That's it. And you get a full year access to this course. It's on a membership site, and it has an interactive features. If you have any questions, you put your questions in there. I'll answer them myself, and you get to go through this step by step. So it's only $97. So the money is a no-brainer, and I wanted the money to be a no-brainer because I really believe that I'd rather have you do that than being the finances being prohibitive for you to invest in something that is as critical right now, which is being able to tell your boss, tell your clients, tell your supply diversity expert why you deserve to get the job. When you know what questions to ask and you get the right answers, now it's really easy for you to give them what they need because you already know what their problems are. When you know what their problems are, and in this course you'll learn how to figure this out, then you can identify what it is that you need to provide that is the solution, which is why I did these interviews with the CEOs and COOs and CHROs, is because it's crazy times right now. How the heck would I know what they're struggling with? I have assumptions, but now they told me. So you think that I'm going to create more products and solutions that are based off what I've just heard? You're absolutely right. So I'm going to teach you that because this is mission critical for your survival right now and for you to find these opportunities. So let me go through the tracks. In track number 1, we talk about your goals and personality. That's about setting goals and objectives and giving you actionable items to even figure out what the heck do you want to achieve, because unless you know where you're going, any way will get you there. So we're diving into that. In the second track, we are diving into your super skill. What are you really good at? And I'm going to take you through again, step by step by step. How do you identify what am I really good at? It's going to take a little bit of thinking, probably a little bit of writing down, There's a workbook that comes with this class, that with this training, that you go through and you can fill it all out. So it's really easy to follow. I've had phenomenal success with this. Then in track number 3, we are focusing on the professional value proposition, where you understand how do you put it together? How do you talk about it? What are commonly made mistakes that you need to be avoiding? And, so you can stop boycotting your advancements, because sometimes we say things inadvertently that are negative to our advancements. I'm going to take you through things to say, things to do, how to behave, how to act, how to show up, to make sure that all of the stuff is driving your career, your business, your opportunities much further. Then I am doing an accountability track, where I take you through what are your next steps? How do you complete all of that? And for those of you that are interested in even more one-on-one attention, there is a mastermind that I offer. Some of you are self-starters, and some of you are really good at that, and maybe that is one of your super skills. All you need is the information and you're good to go. And some of you need a little bit more attention. They need to talk it out. They need to be in the room with someone, say, hey, what do you mean by that? And have that interaction to be able to move forward with that. And as I said, the training is only $97. So it's a no-brainer for you. And if you want, you may sign up for the mastermind if you need that one-on-one attention, which of course I highly recommend, because interaction is always the best way to achieve results. So again, for those of you who want to continue, go to rocketlaunch.training and sign up for the training. Element number 4, so let's go back to our handouts and let's go and talk about how do you find your super skill. So I promised I was going to give you the pitch formula. So here is the pitch formula. Number 1, you want to get very clear about what it is that you want to achieve. So if you want to get a promotion, if you want to get more money, if you want to sign the job, if you want to have a conversation, an exploratory phone call, a brainstorm, whatever that is, it has to be clear ahead of time, and you have to be specific when you pitch something to someone, that you say, my objective with this call, with this meeting is X. Then you have to use the second element. The second element is, why is it a great idea? It is a great idea because you are helping them, you're solving a problem, you are trying to figure something out that's of interest for them. So again, here is where, when we are in the Rocket Launch training with my clients, where we spend some time on this, because we have to be very clear about what the benefit is for them. The solution brings a benefit to them. That is what they will react to. It has to be an urgent problem, or why waste time? Just to talk. So when people say, I want to pick your brain, I don't even respond. Nobody gets to pick my brain unless you have a clear objective on why you want to talk to me. Do not waste your time. So people that are in leadership positions, don't waste their time just to dilly-dally around. They want to know why you're here, what do you want, and you're going to be able to tell it to them in very clear, certain terms. I hope that makes sense to you. And it has to solve an urgent problem, so you have to have that be part of your pitch. And no surprise, you are the key to solving this pitch formula. So again, the pitch formula, what do you want? Why is it a great idea? It solves an urgent problem, and you are the key. So in closing, I want to talk to you just about what we've talked about in this training, is that your viewpoints truly do matter. You just have to be very clear what they are and able to articulate that. You speaking up, and this is straight from the bosses. Your speaking up is more important now than it has ever been. Do not let this chance go by, because who knows when you can have another opportunity like this to shine. And it is critical that you understand what matters now and help other people to find this. What are you going to do when you sign up for rocketlaunch.training and you take the class? You will be knowing how to demonstrate leadership skills. You will be able to use it for advancements and promotions. You will be able to land additional opportunities. You will improve your confidence because you finally know how to talk about yourself conversationally, easy and confidently, which is what we all want, so that it doesn't feel awkward. You can explain the value you bring to the table, and you can design a success or a career path. So I'm going to take you one more time through what the elements are, so you can take your handout. Let's go through that together. Element number one is know your numbers and the data and when and how to use that, because you have to make a case. Number two, you set very clear goals, but you have to reverse engineer your path there. And number three, you learn how to pitch. And if you need more help with the pitch, you contact me, you sign up for rocketlaunch.training. And then if you still need more, outside the online course, you will have an option to join the mastermind and then do it with me together, which I would absolutely love to do. And element number four is find your super skill and articulate that and use it with your unapologetic value proposition all the time. And the next step for you to take is to sign up. So who is this right for? It's right for anybody who wants to step into a leadership position. It's right for anybody who is frankly sick and tired of waiting at this moment in time, because this, as I said, might be going on for some time to come. It's for anybody who feels that there has to be opportunity in everything and they want to be proactive on whether you are employed, whether you're 24, whether you're 35, whether you're 45, whether you're 55. It really works for everybody who wants to talk about themselves and what you bring to the table, what you offer to the world, your brilliance, articulated with confidence and ease. If you want to know how to do that, please join me in Rocket Launch Your Career. Go to rocketlaunch.training. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye, everybody.